Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. Thanks for joining me here for another look at today's headlines with some context and commentary if available. So let's get right to it here. We have Xi Jinping. See, I checked the pronunciation on that. That it's YouTube is loaded with these how to pronounce words correctly and names. And when I was back in the TV game, when I was hosting a show, we had a little app we used that before every broadcast, you want to make sure you scour every word to make sure you pronounce it correctly, or you'd get hundreds of people on the chat telling you it was pronounced the wrong way. And even they would contradict each other. So, it's Xi or Xi Jinping, president of China, ruler number one of China. You know, he's consolidated the power from all the different disparate organs of the government since 2013, which has sort of reunited China under a one supremo leader. And here, this shows what you can do if you got a lot of money. If makes you an important person, we have executives from Microsoft, Citigroup, Exxon, large multinationals. They're lining up for an audience with Xi Jinping, the president of China, in the San Francisco. This was also interesting here. CNN kind of playing this up, but interesting nonetheless. And we hear when they mean Americans, they mainly mean Chinese Americans, many of whom might be critical of the party, which is in China equal to the state of China, the entire country. They equate it with the party. So they have these professional trolls that come after people that might criticize that. China seems to have been very adept at using social media, have a lot of labor to do that, I suppose. Here we have stocks soaring again. You know, we have a typical period every October where it usually is a dip in stocks. You know, all the great crashes came then, so there's always trepidation going into that. Now, we know we've gone a long time without a recession. We know the U.S. has pumped trillions into the economy each year to prevent that, and we've kind of artificially staved that off. People have been expecting some sort of correction, a recession. You know, here we have the death cross. And simply, it used to be a lot of regular newspapers had a good financial section, and maybe once a week, like on a Wednesday, they'd have one issue about financials, and there's a lot of information about how to read the charts, and but they don't seem to do that anymore. You don't even see that in news feeds. It's all just the biggest, the glibest headlines, the clickbaitiest headlines. That's what I'm trying to correct or help out with here by giving a little background. So okay, so what's the idea of a death cross? Death cross is when you have two lines on the chart that cross first. And people said, okay, maybe we can find something in these stats that show us when recessions will be triggered. And so one of them is when the line of the short-term moving average, which is, I think it's at 90 days. I had this. There's a lot of different death crosses because people have tried to find some sort of a statistical thing that will trigger these, that will show when recessions trigger. Because we know economics is almost sort of like a religion. It seems like afterwards, you know, we can figure out what was going on, but I don't, you know, afterwards we could say everything in economics was predicted, but we only say that after it happened. It's hard to predict things ahead of time. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I got it. I just paused it. I'm experimenting with a pause on this program here. Okay, here it is. We have a short-term average. Typically, a 50-day average drops below the longer-term one, the 200-day average for the Dow Jones. So this would be something where you're looking at statistics and you're saying in these cases they foretold a crash. The pattern has preceded most bear markets, not a crash, but bear markets over the past 100 years, including 29, 38, 74, and 2008. That's the last sort of 2008's the last worldwide dip that we've had. And I wanted to clarify when I say that Dow Jones, that economics is a religion. It is one of those things that you just have to have some belief in some theory of it. But again, it's very hard to predict where the market's going. And you could say, well, I've heard they predicted this. It's only after the fact that people say that, going up to a crash or recession, a big signal is everybody saying this time it's different and things can always go up forever. So anyway, I may be a sort of a moronic Philistine when it comes to economics, because I know there are a lot of people who just say this is a science, it's a hard science, and we got the facts, but it's very tricky. It's almost too big and too many variables to pin down. So anyway, economics, here we go. AI, here we have Google builds AI for weather forecasts, but there's a catch. And so all the weather guys are saying you have to, you can't just do these statistical models. You've got to analyze it. And see here, they say some meteorologists, that's who I call weather guys, have expressed caution about turning weather forecasting over to AI. It's placed in simulation, checks against physics and chemistry. That's probably true. We'll know in a few years whether AI really can change in everything or if that's just media hype. Whether this dumb statistical collecting and averaging that AI is doing, whether it will turn out to be anything. I don't know. Some fights in Congress, don't care. Sort of like in Taiwan. Remember all those fights they had in the past? This is what I was loving because, I get I'm at the very beginning of this channel for what I'm doing. I think it's a worthwhile thing. So, but it takes some time to build it up. So every once in a while, I'll have a peek in the people who view the videos. And it's because when I look in the analytics, people are searching for RFK. He's popular, he's polling, what was it, 21 or 22% as an independent. That's like Ross Perot did in the 1990s. So every day I'm hoping for RFK articles to pop up. And here is one. Here is RFK Jr. scores endorsements from 3 high-profile athletes. And I believe he was also in the news because he was walking around an airplane he was on with bare feet. Sounds pretty gross, but, see RFK, son of Robert Kennedy, the assassinated former attorney general and presidential candidate, assassinated when it looked like he was certain to win the nomination for president in 1968, if not the presidency itself. Obviously, many people on the left thought that RFK Jr. would be the next big thing to carry on the Kennedy legacy, as almost everybody did for all the Kennedy relatives, Teddy and JFK's son who died in the plane crash. All of these people were, it was hoped that they would be able to revive that legacy, and none of them have been. RFK may revive it, but in a disappointing way to people on the left because, he's got a lot of very weird ideas about vaccines and conspiracy theories, and he's, it's been a thorn in the side of of maybe the left or even the Democrats at large who attempted to try to tamp down anybody who would say anything against vaccinations during the COVID situation. So this is a kind of worrying thing. And for the elections, because he's running as an independent, seems to have a lot of strength. Of course, you might think because his views on some of these conspiratorial things are more in line with the right or the Republicans than they are with the left. So it remains to be seen whether he might disadvantage the Republican side rather than the Democratic side in a general election. More on Trump here. More on the death of this woke thing. I've been looking at this site. This is a fun site. Now, I think they say it leans left, but it has a high degree of truthfulness about it. But it's a neat. It has these little capsules of news, and then it has a couple breakouts from it. Sometimes there's an opinion or context, almost sort of like what I'm doing. See, here's David's view about it. So he says something about it, just so you have some context. As we know, maybe in the last at least 6 years, we had this real move to go to representation and diversity over all else, over profitability in business, and to use business and big corporations for some perceived good of society. And it's caused a kind of a slump in earnings in a lot of companies that have gone after this agenda, as some people claim. But it seems to be dwindling away. As before, people were afraid to speak out. You could be sort of canceled on social media if people brought this to light, and they would be accused of racism or sexism or being a bigot in general, being called names. So now that's sort of passing away as people are speaking out against it. So you do have some truth being spoken there, but you also have more people willing to believe in crazy conspiracy theories because they were, I think, shut up in the past few years. So I don't know. Hopefully this will sort itself out in time and calm down. Parents furious at school Satan club. It's very American. At any time in the past, there would always be some news item like this. In any decade of the past when I was alive, like, oh, what an example of a new trend. But I don't know if it's a trend. It's just one weird outlier that is highlighted and magnified by the media. Excuse me. Here we have an interesting thing. Of course, this is more promoted by the right-leaning sources. We have the Israel-Hamas war. No, wait a second. That's not even what I clicked on. I'm clicking on the giant rally, 290,000 March for Israel in D.C. I guess it's on this live feed down here. I hate these live feeds. I'd rather go right to the article. Oh, here we go. This is people for Israel, and it's a very big turnout. You know, this is what we always have to ask ourselves when we see this news about on some U.S. campus, there's a small group of students that are calling for the end of Israel. You know, you have to wonder, is this typical of a feeling in society, or is it crazy clout-grabbing students on a U.S. campus? And even before the age of the internet, you'd always have more extreme views being trotted out on the internet, or on campuses around the country, and it may not really be indicative of a wider viewpoint, because the United States has long been a an ally and supportive of Israel through all of these very contentious wars over the decades. The hospital things in Gaza, very tricky situation. Life expectancy falling, that fire under the freeway in LA. These crazy things, I don't know. You know, I come from the Christian world, but not the Catholic world, so this seems very peculiar to me. It's interesting. All of this religion stuff, you know, it's whether you believe in it or not. I think it's it has to do with something in our minds that's so complex that we absolutely need some sort of belief one way or another. You know, belief is so ubiquitous around the globe and in every culture. And this is terrible, isn't it? This article was crafted with the help of an AI tool. Oh, just reviewed by an editor. So, shame on them. I don't know. Stuff. More stuff. CIA boss to Ukraine for urgent meetings. You know, this is the Ukraine situation has almost been blown out of the news cycle by the stuff that's happening in Israel. This is interesting. Excuse me. Try not to show any dead bodies, although they're blurred. Putin, where's that? See, I'm blocking the JavaScript and the ads because I don't want intrusive, yucky-looking toenails on my site. I don't want to show them to you. I don't want to see them myself. As soon as these newspapers clean up those super gross ads, I'll turn off the ad blockers. But as long as they're doing that garbage and putting that garbage in front of my face all the time, I will block it. Well, I still can't get on. Yeah. Oh, here it is. Here we go. This is incredible. You know, this is probably something you couldn't do if you're in a democracy. You know, how people went mad over just a few thousand U.S. soldiers being killed in those wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. As you'd have to have a kind of authoritarian government to force to continue with these kind of losses and this kind of loss to your military. And I think this was a surprise to everybody. I even people who analyze this, who I know, they did not expect this sort of incredible stalemate that has been helpful to Ukraine. What is this? I did not notice this before. Obama says civil rights pioneer Bayard Rustin was denied his place in history. There's Obama, still looking good. Oh, because he was gay or something. Okay. I don't know. I don't know anything about this, but I've mentioned his name, so he's in my little corner of history now. This is crazy stuff. Gates buying up land, threatening farms under the guise of saving planets. I think that's probably slanted a bit. This is certainly a hard right-wing site but it plays up things other news venues do not. Bid to engineer society. All of this stuff is a little bit rabble-rousing, but on the other hand, I don't know why these really rich guys think they should take stands and do stuff like that by virtue of the amount of money they have. Because I would always think of the old quote from The Simpsons where Marge Simpson says, one person can make a difference, but most of the time they probably shouldn't. And the idea is that how likely is it that all of your viewpoints, your one person's viewpoints, someone of your age, of your socioeconomic status, how likely is it that you're going to hit on the right tact that will seem correct 10, 20, 30 years from now in the fullness of history? Most of the time it's not. And most of us have a lot of very reactionary ideas to stay in the moment. So I don't know. Well, I do know. I just say that. I don't know to be humble. Here we have a little bit more of this. This is a popular thing, too, for YouTube. People aren't quite so interested in looking up Israel versus Hamas or Russia versus Ukraine, but they're interested in looking up Brie Larson. And so here we have this, after with Disney, after Avengers Endgame, the Marvel movie, I think the largest both domestic and international gross in history, I think, something like that. They just flooded the market with big budget superhero movies, 3 a year. They flooded 2 or 3 long form series. At the time with streaming, it seemed like this sort of strategy was a smart one because of the COVID thing. Everybody was pouring money into it, but we've had a lot of films tank. They say it's superhero fatigue. Perhaps, but because the films were terrible, they took a different tact after Endgame to, again, it goes back to that woke thing. A lot of straight, I think they put a lot of female characters into these movies, but they treated the female characters poorly. They didn't write them well. They didn't give them the arcs. They just made them static characters with very little distinguishing characteristics. Straight. The same thing in those Star Wars movies, The Last Jedi. It was supposed to be women representation, but they made the women in those movies laughable. They made them look like fools. No wonder the actresses involved perhaps felt ambivalent to their performances there. It's strange. Here's the formula. I'll give you the formula. Write the character as a man and then cast a woman in it. Because with the man, you always have somebody who's messes up, who's at his lowest point, who has to work and learn. He may not be as good as the others, but he finds the way in his way to make it there. The example of like a great a woman character who was written as a man, I believe, was the TV series Veronica Mars. That was originally written, I believe, as a novel, a young adult novel, as a man, and somebody at some point just said, we'll do it as a TV show, but turn that character into a woman. So they left that, all the trials and tribulations that the man goes through, and the woman, a female played it, a lady played it, and it was magnificent. It's one of my favorite things, Veronica Mars. What else do we have here? Drought, okay, we did Marvel. Somebody giving away vegetables, okay. Teen grew 7,000 pounds of vegetables, then gave them all away. I suppose, I don't know, you wouldn't eat them yourself. I suppose you could sell them. That looks like fun, growing vegetables. I liked that when I was a kid. America getting lonelier, more indoorsy. Obviously, we spend a lot more time on the phone. When I was a kid, there was nothing like that. Everybody wanted a car so you could go out and do something. But now you don't have to go out to do anything. All the stores are closed anyway, so there's nowhere to go. And we have a dog found alive beside dead owners' bodies month after both went missing. This is a kind of a typical human interest story. Guess someone went out in the woods. Man's best friend I don't know if that's a downer story or an upper story to end on, but let me, before I forget, I'm going to pick out my Art of War card today. I've got my deck here. I'll just pick out the top one. Okay. Here we have reveal an injury to gain support. Show you have been injured by a rival of your adversary to gain your adversary's assistance. Okay. Interesting. These are just interesting, strategic things to do in your life, I suppose. This is the way people use Art of War today in business and in life. Think strategically as opposed to just screaming and blurting out like a moron, like you see in the reality television shows. They've taught people to act poorly. So anyway, I think that's the headlines for today. It wasn't a heavy news day, but some interesting things about economics, I think. So until next time, I'll say goodbye. Bye-bye.